chicken Parmesan has crossed the $30 threshold in my area, and in some places actually pushing $40. I feel like this is a good topic to discuss because food costs are rising pretty much everywhere. This is a specific case study where there was a restaurant I went to earlier this year called Noah's Italian, and this is in Saratoga Springs, which is actually known for a little bit of kind of price raises during like a touristy season during the track. If you recall back to that video, I had two open loops. The first was I was curious how $32 chicken parm would taste, and the second was I was curious how the prices were going to change during track season. So I made a reservation for what ended up being opening day of track season. And well, that $32 chicken parm became $38 chicken parm. That answers that question. And everything seemed to go up a little bit. But a lot happened since I went to Noah's Italian last time. Like Noah's dad putting a spicy sandwich that I created for the channel here on their permanent menu at his deli. But I digress. So let's talk about this trip to Noah's, and I'll tell you if $38 chicken parm is justifiable. First, as we do, had to get a cocktail at Noah's. And you'll remember that these cocktails are actually all themed after kind of Italian-American pop culture type things. Like last time I got something called the Shine Box, which was obviously inspired by Goodfellas. This time I got my hopes up for the gabagool. And that was mostly because the vodka in this was infused with the fat from the gabagool, which I've never seen before and seemed really unique and interesting. But the waitress shared with me that they were out of that, so I buckled and I ended up getting a drink called One Dog Goes One Way. And this one is also a reference to Goodfellas, specifically the painting that Scorsese's mom made that's featured in the scene in the middle with Billy Bats. Well, not with Billy Bats, but you know what I mean. This one had vodka, grapefruit, lime, honey, thyme. Honestly, not at all my favorite. I don't know why I ended up picking this other than the name, but I love the idea of that meringue that was on top that sticks to your nose every time you take a sip. One dog goes one way, the other dog goes the other way, and this guy says, "What do you want from me?" Couple of appetizers for the table at Noah's. The tuna crudo was probably my favorite, adorned with peach, Calabrian chili, and fennel. This was a total flavor bomb. Really nice quality fish that melts in your mouth, just perfect. And then we picked the ricotta toast because that one was made with a sesame twist bread, which I haven't seen since I worked in my dad's deli years ago. Talking like over 20 years ago. This one was all right. There was some raw prosciutto, some crispy bits of prosciutto, and a sweet little truffle honey, which helped to actually season that ricotta a little bit. But what's kind of typical with dishes that include ricotta is that it could have taken a little bit more seasoning. I'm talking about like salt and pepper. Otherwise tasty. As far as the presentation, and I don't know how I would fix this, the glory of the sesame twist bread is the fact that it's this like hunking loaf of bread that has all these crevices and stuff in it. And by slicing it and presenting the ricotta on top, it just covers up the fact that it's such a glorious bread. Like I said, not sure how to fix it, but there's gotta be a way. Here is the $38 KD's chicken parm at Noah's Italian. Now, first I have to mention, it looks a little bit more orange than you would expect. That's not a shortcoming of the cell phone footage at all. Trust me, this Pixel has one of the most amazing cameras I've ever seen. This was my mistake because the server offered to do the pasta with vodka sauce, and I could never decline that, so I actually opted for that. To me, that's a no-brainer. Vodka sauce is almost always better than just straight up tomato, so I went that way. On its own, the pasta with vodka sauce was incredible. The pasta is called casarici, which is long, kind of almost like gavadelli, a little bit lighter though. And it was a little chewy, almost bordering on overcooked, but that lends me to believe that maybe this was a handmade or homemade pasta, or at least something that was really high quality. So biting into the chicken parm, isolating the red sauce bit on top from the vodka sauce on the bottom, execution here was a little bit mixed. On portion size, this is undoubtedly worth the $38 price tag in Saratoga Springs. I say that because I don't think I've ever gone home with leftovers from a restaurant in Saratoga, but this time I definitely did, and it made for a great sandwich the next day. So on that front, if I'm gonna spend $38 on chicken parm, I better be going home with leftovers, especially since I live in the land of chicken parm that's about half of the price of that, and they give you portions for days. Now the chicken was a touch thicker than I really like with chicken parm. This could be stylistic choice, but for me, a wider, crisper cutlet is really more indicative of like the classic chicken parmesan. The red sauce was kind of basic, which isn't to say bad, but kind of given the culinary legacy of this place and kind of the lineage of the kitchen and all the talented cooks that work there, I kind of expect a little bit more out of that. Tomato sauce is really just a couple of ingredients anyway, so you can't really nitpick too far. The cheese was a little bit tough to figure out. And I'm gonna tell you first, straight out, fresh mozzarella is the wrong cheese for chicken parm or New York style pizza. I'll die on that hill. And this comes from someone whose father made fresh mozzarella every day. And when I used to work with my dad, he would sneak me a piece of the fresh mozzarella. So I love fresh mozzarella. Just chicken parm isn't the place for it. Just a little bit too much moisture and it gets a little bit dry and rubbery when it melts. The cheese on this kind of seemed like a hybrid between fresh mozz and low moisture. It was dry, but pretty plentiful. So as far as taste, this was a pretty average chicken parmesan. But I think by default, because of that portion size, I have to say that $38 is worth it for that in Saratoga Springs. Of course, I had to cap off the meal at Noah's with tiramisu. On the last visit, this was the one thing I had to reach out to Chef Noah to let him know that it was outstanding. I know a thing or two about tiramisu, but on this visit, I noticed a description change from the last visit. And after confirming with the server that it was a different preparation, I ordered it. And I gotta say, I was a little bit disappointed, not because what they gave me was particularly bad. It was actually a perfectly normal, average tiramisu. It was missing, there was a different cookie in the version last time. It was missing a little bit of that textural contrast, and there was some richness to the cream that just wasn't here this time. Like I said, tiramisu is seldom bad. It's just not what it was before. So yes, some definite differences in prices and execution from the last visit. Maybe the place was overall a little bit louder and rowdier than the first time, but this visit, the service and the food was still very good. If you enjoyed this and are interested in more food breakdowns, hit this video with a like and subscribe for more. Click into the video on your screen right now to see my breakdown of the first visit to Noah's. I'll see you there.